on, everybody? It is Fabs here. Welcome back to another edition of the Believe Fantasy Football Show with your pal Fabs and, of course, my buddy Toss. What's going on, brother?
Not much. I've got another predicament. I need some advice, Fabs. I'm glad I get to talk to you about this. QBs, everybody who drafted Justin Fields, they have to figure out if they want to play him on a Thursday night game. What do we do?
It depends on the alternatives, man. Throw me some names.
I have Love on Monday night against the Raiders, so I think I'll probably go that direction.
I mean, the matchup's not bad, we're going to get into all the matchups for the Thursday night game between the Bears and the Commanders. It's not a bad matchup, to be honest with you. So I think I have Fields and Love ranked back to back. So whoever you feel safer with, it could be a personal preference kind of thing.
Yeah,
in that situation. Yeah, I have the same thing too. And last week I started Love, which was not the right call, but it didn't
kill you though. Didn't kill you.
Yeah, he still had a decent game. So yeah, we've got not exactly the best real football matchup going on Thursday night, but we also didn't have a great football matchup in terms of real football last week between Denver and Chicago, and we got a boatload of fantasy points. So I think that could potentially be the case on Thursday. Let's get into it. The Commanders are a 6-point favorite at home. The over-under right now is 44.5. The Bears are 215 at the money line on the plus side. The Commanders are at minus 265. Just a couple of stats for all you wager heads out there. The Bears have been underdogs in 16 of Justin Fields' last 19 starts. That's not good for Chicago. They're 5-10-1 against the spread in those games, and they're 2-7 against the spread as road underdogs in those games. So they don't cover typically on the road as dogs. The over has come up in 6 of the Bears' last 9 road games was Fields at the quarterback position. So a little bit of interesting stuff there. The Commanders 4-6 against the spread at home dating back to last year. They're 2-3 against the spread at home as favorites. So really not much there. But here's an interesting stat. The under has come up in 9 of the last 11 home games for the Commanders, including 7 straight. So to me, I think this game could go over because I'm looking at these two teams and the Bears have no defense and the Commanders, you can certainly score on them, but the trend is going under on the total in this game. With the Bears, there's really only 2 must-start players. I mean, and Justin Fields, I don't even know if is a must-start at this point. He's more of a matchup-based guy, but the matchup's okay. I mean, the Commanders have allowed 18 points per game to quarterbacks this season. They've allowed the 3rd most rushing yards to quarterbacks, which is good. Hopefully the Bears will actually call some runs for Fields, which they should be doing every single week. So I have Fields in my top 10 quarterbacks. He's not a terrible play. He had a good game last week. Let's see if he can build on that. DJ Moore, again, I don't know that he's a must start, but you got 4 teams on a bye and you got injuries all over the place. So you could probably play DJ Moore. The Commanders are giving up the 7th most points to perimeter receivers. So you can start DJ Moore in this game. Khalil Herbert is going to be active in a lot of leagues coming off a big game last week. The Commanders have given up 12 plus points to 3 running backs this year. And if I'm starting Herbert and I get 12, I'm like, yo, I'm good. That's a win for me. And Herbert got most of the burn last week over Roschon Johnson. Who knows if that's going to change? It could be a hot hand situation. Herbert's still an RB2 flex, more of a flex. And then Cole Kmet, who had a huge game. Huge game. The Commanders have allowed the fewest fantasy points to tight ends this season. Just keep that in mind. I know people are going to be chasing the points of Cole Kmet, and tight ends thin, paper thin. The matchup's not great for Kmet. On the Commander side, Brian Robinson Jr. is very good. He is very good in terms of the numbers this week. The Bears have allowed the 2nd most points to running backs. They've allowed 12 plus points to 6 running backs in 4 games, including 3 with over 19. Brian Robinson is very good from a fantasy perspective.
Who is that running back that they gave up a lot of points to last week? What was his name?
Jaleel McLaughlin, who is one of the most popular ads off the waiver wire this week. with Javonte Williams being
I
back.
knew his name, by the way. I just wanted to hear you say McLaughlin again.
The McLaughlin Report, or Sarah McLaughlin, which is whatever.
Yeah.
I know the song, but
Yeah.
not a huge fan. Anyways, Brian Robinson's in a smash spot. Terry McLaurin, who's been good lately. I told you last week he was really good against the Eagles in his career, and he popped again. The Bears have given up the 9th most points to perimeter receivers. So you could start McLaurin. You know, if you need to start Jahan Dotson, I get it. He had a touchdown last week, but his numbers haven't been great. And Sam Howell is a sneaky play. The Bears have given up the 2nd most fantasy points to quarterbacks, including 18 plus to every starting quarterback they have faced. So the floor for a quarterback against Chicago is 18 points so far after 4 weeks. That's pretty good. I would start Sam Howell over Joe Burrow this week, Toss.
If you're in a 2 QB league and you have a shaky second quarterback, maybe a Derek Carr.
Derek Carr is super shaky. No, yeah.
Maybe
Sam
Joe
Howell's
Burrow.
Starting in a lot of leagues, man.
He's going to have a lot of opportunity in this game, to your point. And
so
it's good that for Dotson and for Curtis Samuel both ruled active tonight. They had some injuries that they were kind of limping around with Tuesday, Wednesday, but they're active. They'll be playing. So that helps Howell even more.
Yeah. If you stream defenses, the Bears turn the ball over a bunch, and they're not the best offense on the planet, as we know. So you could start the Commanders if you need to, but certainly not a top 5 option, but potentially back of the DST ones for fantasy owners. And that's a look at the game. It's again, the under has been trending with the Commanders at home. So just keep that in mind. Again, the total for tonight's game right now, at least, 44.5. Now let's go to the player props. Jen Piacenti over at Sports Illustrated. Make sure you check out her player props every single week, Thursdays and for the weekends. She has Fields under 48.5 rushing yards at -120. Sam Howell over 12.5 rushing yards at -125. Antonio Gibson, this one is a surprise, over 13.5 receiving yards at -120. And even though the Commanders are really good against tight ends, anytime touchdown for Cole Kmet at +320. That's why she's doing it, because that's a pretty nice plus money wager there on a guy who just scored a couple of touchdowns last week. So that's your look at Thursday Night Football. Tosh, you got any guys going tonight besides potentially Fields?
I do have Herbert playing in 1 week. I'm going to bank on the fact that he had 18 carries last week and was productive, and hope that they kind of try and use him as that lead back. I love my guy Roshan, Longhorn. Deontay Foreman signed him in the offseason, and he's still not really getting run, which was interesting.
Yeah, he's been a healthy scratch, yeah.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be more involved, but I need Herbert to do something. And then I think that's all I've got. I think I have one league where I have defensive players, so I have Sweat playing, but that's neither here nor there. But you bring up the Commanders' defense. I think, the under hitting them at home starts with their defensive line. If they can kind of wreak havoc in the backfield and maybe strip sack or just sack Fields a lot, not only will Jen's prop hit, but I think that's how they win this game, right? They get to the quarterback, they pressure him, and he doesn't have time to get out of the pocket, make some runs happen with his legs, super athletic. But he's had 2 games where he's been over that 48.5, and he's had 2 games where he's been well under. And last week against the Broncos, even though they scored a lot of points, he only had 20 rushing yards. So I don't mind Jen's prop there. I know it's a big number, and that's why the under looks enticing, and I'd probably ride with it.
Yeah, Fields was very good as a passer last week,
yep.
Which is why you are going to see Zach Wilson starting in some DFS lineups, some 2 QB leagues, because they're playing Denver this week, and they have the worst defense in the league. Let's go to some player props for week 5. And lo and behold, Zach Wilson is on my list at quarterback, $4,900 if you want to go really cheap. Zach Wilson, believe it or not, there are 4 quarterbacks who are backup quarterbacks in the league who are either evenly priced or more expensive than Zach Wilson. That's crazy town. You want to know who these quarterbacks are? Mitchell Trubisky, who was potentially going to be the starter, but it looks like now Kenny Pickett could be back. Trying to think off the top of my head, one of the ones that was a surprise was Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor is, I believe his number is equal to Zach Wilson, which makes, I don't know anything about setting those prices. I don't know what they do, but that seemed really strange to me because I think Zach Wilson is going to be a popular, hey, I don't want to spend a lot of money on a quarterback. I'm going to go with a cheap option plan.
Yeah.
And I mean, listen, I mean, I ain't crowning him, but he did at least look awful last week. Marcus Mariota is also the same price. I mean, he ain't sniffing the field unless, God forbid, Hurts gets hurt. And Jake Browning is $5,000. That's because, the Bengals may or may not sit Burrow, but I haven't heard anything that says they're going to sit him. But I guess DK is sort of adding to Browning's salary because of that. So
yeah, but either way, Zach Wilson is going to be the starter. He's playing the Broncos.
It's so strange.
He hit Garrett Wilson 9 times last game. There's the makings of a very solid game for him in fantasy and in DFS.
Let's hope so.
I like that price for him.
Yeah. Josh Dobbs is $5,200. Josh Dobbs got more fantasy points than a lot of the big name quarterbacks we drafted to be our starters. It's crazy. He's got more points than Burrow, Dak. I mean, it's crazy town. Joshua Dobbs has not been bad at all. And then Matt Stafford, and you may be like, wait a minute. Against the Eagles? $5,600 against. He may get Cooper Kupp back this week, maybe. And the Eagles have given up the 6th most points to quarterbacks this season. Their defense has not been good against the pass. So Stafford's on the list. Running back bargains. Breece Hall. Apparently the shackles are coming off this week. And Dalvin Cook looks cooked. Breece should get 15 touches in this game at least. And the Broncos are bad.
Is Cook a droppable for you at this
What's
point?
That?
Is Cook a droppable player?
In a smaller league, yeah, he is. Although during the bye weeks, people may have to play him. He looks awful. And I mean, this is the Broncos. The Broncos are bad. I don't even know if you can play him against the Broncos, to be quite honest with you. Gus Edwards is $5,000 against the Steelers, who are not good on the defensive side of the football. And then if we don't get Javonte this week, Jaleel McLaughlin's $5,000. Not a great matchup, but the volume is there. The fantasy gods, though, are cruel. Just remember this. I would not be surprised if Samaje Perine started just to screw us, because we all spent all our fab on McLaughlin, or at least a part of it, and he looked good last week. It was against the Bears. Watch Samaje Perine start this week, and they'll just Sean Payton will have no fans in the fantasy community.
And the running back pickups thus far have been relatively effective, right? You look at Kyron Williams, obviously a lot of people hadn't drafted, and then he comes in, and we obviously know where he is now. Zach Moss had a really nice game coming off of that injury. Like guys that have been HN, like guys have been picked up and they've produced for you. So this would be the right time for one of them to just be an absolute dud.
So well, hopefully I spent some money on him.
Jerome Ford, right?
Another one. Yeah, there's been a lot of them.
They've all kind of hit.
Running backs keep getting hurt. Wide receiver bargains. Zay Flowers, $5,500 against Pittsburgh. Their corners are awful. Adam Thielen, who continues to be on fire against the Lions, who struggle against slot receivers, $5,100. And this one's cheap. I like Rashee Rice is $3,600 against the Vikings. And the Vikings have no pass defense. So I like that one. I wouldn't be surprised if he got in the end zone. Tight ends. Tyler Higbee against the Eagles at $4,100. Zach Ertz, who's one of the most targeted tight ends in the National Football League, even though he doesn't get a lot of love in fantasy, $3,500. And then Tyler Conklin, you want a sleeper type tight end for your DFS or your starting lineups. Conklin against the Broncos, $3,200. Now on to the fades. Joe Burrow's, I can't play him. Joe Burrow's my sit of the week at quarterback. And I'm kind of trying to reverse jinx him out of the just the absolute statistical slumber that he's been in, because I have him in like 4 or 5 leagues and he's killing me. So I'm like, you know what? Sometimes I put a guy up there, and not that he's reading my column or not, but the fantasy gods say, all right, you're down on him. Let's bounce him back up a little bit. So I've got Burrow as a fade. Derek Carr and Mac Jones are both fades too. Not that you're playing either one of those two guys, but we're going to talk about traditional fantasy. I'm not touching those guys. At running back, Zach Moss at $5,800. Even if there wasn't the threat of Jonathan Taylor, I wouldn't play him for that much. The Titans defense is really good against the run. Really good. Ramondre Stevenson against the Saints at $5,600. Ramondre's done nothing this year so far. He's had one decent game. And the Saints defense is tough. And then Najee Harris, I can finally say, yeah, you sit him. The last 2 weeks have been really good matchups. He's done nothing. $5,400 against Baltimore. No, thank you. Wide receivers. I can't pay $7,900 for Jamar Chase. I can't. Even against the Crow, I can't. It's too much money in an offense that's not clicking with a quarterback who's dealing with a calf. That's forcing him to throw the ball short. Can't push it downfield. I can't pay that much for Jamar Chase. Jerry Jeudy against the Jets is $6,300. Marquise Brown, against the Bengals at $5,000. Going to push those guys also. Tight ends, Hunter Henry at 44 against the Saints. They're very tough on the defensive side. Taysom Hill not going there. And then Kyle Pitts every week. Until Kyle Pitts does something, I don't care how cheap he is. He's $3,300. I'm not touching him. Not touching him.
I actually was in a chat with some guys, and we were talking about potential trade destinations for Kyle Pitts just because we want to see him go to an offense that actually is going to utilize him. I think the Texans would be a fun place for him to end up with Stroud. Dalton Schultz is fine, but he's not as dynamic of a playmaker as Kyle Pitts. They'd have some weapons if they made that move. And
there's a lot of teams.
But that was the most fun one that we threw out there. Collins, Tank Dell, and Kyle Pitts for CJ Stroud. That would be nice. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Hey, Carolina says they're looking for a number one wide receiver. If they can't get that, only problem is that's an in-division deal, which probably wouldn't happen. But the biggest waste of talent in the last decade. He's if he didn't play tight end toss, he would be on the waiver wire. But because he plays a thin position and he's got talent, people are holding out hope that it turns around. Folks, it's been 2 years plus now, 2.25 years. It's not turning around in Atlanta. I hate to tell you. Let's move on to the quarterbacks. Starts and sits. Tua, low-hanging fruit. Not really. He's had 2 really good games and 2 kind of meh games. But the Giants stink. And I take great pleasure in the Giants stinking as a Cowboys fan from the tri-state area. Giants have given up 20-plus fantasy points to Brock Purdy and Joshua Dobbs over their first 4 games. Tua is going to light them up like a Christmas tree. Kirk Cousins against the Chiefs. Cousins at home is very productive. The total's at 53.5 right now. It's going to be a high-scoring game. I like Cousins. Goff is at home. You could play him against the Panthers, even though the matchup's not great. We mentioned Jordan Love. Monday night, Raiders, good matchup. And then Stafford, if you're looking for, and this is more of I don't love Joe Burrow this week, or I don't love Dak this week, or maybe I've got Purdy and I don't love him and I want to play somebody that could potentially pop. Stafford against the Eagles. I know it's weird you say the Eagles are a favorable matchup, but they are. They're giving up a lot of points to quarterbacks this season. Sit-ems. I already talked about Burrow and DFS. He's averaging 7.9 points per game. He's terrible right now. Yeah. I hope he turns it around, but he's terrible. I don't know how you play him. I'm in 2 QB leagues. I have to. I'm screwed. I have to. But boy, I feel real bad about it. And I can't believe I'm saying that about Joe Burrow. I've got Joshua Dobbs ranked ahead of Joe Burrow this week. Not in a million years I would have ever thought I'd have Joshua Dobbs ranked higher than Joe Burrow unless the Cincinnati Bengals were on a bye or he was injured and out. It's crazy. I don't love Lawrence against the Bills this week. Lawrence has not been good. He's averaging 14 points a game. That's not good. We were expecting way more. And the Bills defense has given up the fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. Now, I will say this. The Bills have not faced any good quarterbacks besides Tua. But they did hold Tua to a modest total. The other quarterbacks they faced was Garoppolo, Zach Wilson. Yeah. They haven't, Stafford. Did they play Stafford? No, maybe it wasn't Stafford. I can't remember who the other quarterback was.
Did they play Howell? Did they play the Commanders? No.
Yes.
They did, right?
Yes. I had Stafford on the brain from stardom. Yes, they played Howell and he didn't have a good game against them. But I mean, Tua is the best quarterback they faced, but Tua did have a mediocre game against them. Both of the games in the Cowboys-Niners game, Prescott and Purdy. I don't know that I can play either one of them in a traditional one quarterback league. Dak's averaging fewer than 14 points a game. He's not been good in fantasy so far. He's had one good game in fantasy. Purdy, who was my start of the week quarterback, had a good game last week, over 20 fantasy points. I mean, the Cowboys have given up 3 touchdown passes, and they're giving up 8.3 points per game to quarterbacks. Now, we haven't really played anybody. And I say we because I'm a Cowboys honk. We Daniel Jones stinks. Zach Wilson's, I'm sorry, he had a good game last week, but I mean, he wasn't good against the Cowboys. We played Joshua Dobbs for crying out loud and lost to him. And we played Mac Jones. So we haven't played good quarterbacks.
So, okay.
So, but I still don't love Purdy. He's not in my top 12.
So if you drafted Dak, you drafted Trevor Lawrence, you drafted them to start most likely. So where do you draw the line with those two guys for anyone who has a team out there where they did draft Lawrence and Prescott? Like we talked about Love. We talked about, you probably don't have Fields and Lawrence, right? You probably don't have Fields and Dak, but who are you willing to play over those two guys? Like, are you playing Dobbs over Dak?
Here's the rankings for quarterback in that ballpark area. I do not have Dobbs over Dak, but Burrow's been so bad. So I've got Howell at 13, Brock at 14, Dak at 15, Russell at 16, Stafford at 17, Dobbs at 18, Burrow at 19.
And where's Lawrence?
Lawrence I have at 11.
Okay.
And I don't love the matchup, but do I want to play CJ Stroud, Sam Howell, Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott over Trevor Lawrence for the hope that maybe it turns into a shootout and Lawrence is throwing the ball?
Yeah.
So I'm going to stick with him. He's a low QB1.
They get their second week in London, right? They didn't have to travel back to the States.
Right.
The Bills have to go there. Maybe that has some effect on it. They played well last week. Like he didn't need to do too much because they were comfortably beating the Falcons.
Yeah, right, exactly. So let's hope things turn around for the better there for Trevor Lawrence. Moving on to the running backs. Once again, I will say these are startums and start 'em and pray. 4 teams on a bye. Everybody's hurt. Miles Sanders, I've got a new nickname for him. Miles away from being a good fantasy player, Sanders. I've never liked him. He was good last year at the end of the year based on the totals, but he was really inconsistent. And this year, he scored fewer than 8 points in 2 of his last 3 games. He's got the groin injury. Chuba Hubbard looks better than he does. The Lions are tough against running backs. I don't want to start Miles Sanders if I could help it. Okay. I can't trust him. Najee Harris. I had him as a start in the last 2 weeks because Raiders, Texans, now Ravens. Nope. But you probably got to play him. Dameon Pierce, who's dealing with a little bit of a knee injury, has got Atlanta. Did you know Atlanta has given up the second fewest fantasy points to running backs, only behind the Cowboys? That's a pretty impressive. I mean, first 4 weeks. I wouldn't have expected that. But they've been tough on running back.
It's been good.
Zach Moss, as I mentioned, even if Jonathan Taylor does not play this week, he's no more than a flex for me. The matchup's bad. The Titans are real tough. 3rd fewest points allowed to running backs. Keep that in mind. Alexander Mattison had a good game last week. You probably got to play him. Chiefs defense, 1 touchdown allowed, 14.4 points per game allowed to running backs. Not great. It's not a good matchup for Madison. So keep that in mind. The startums, I'm putting my chips in on Breece Hall this week. Now, I did that with Javonte last week and I got burned, but that's because he got hurt. And I would bet that if he didn't get hurt, he's going to put up the numbers that Jaleel McLaughlin did last week. Breece Hall's been bad outside of the first game of the year. But now Robert Saleh's saying the snap count's gone. Thank God. Because Dalvin Cook, listen, man, I didn't think he was washed coming into the season. He looks like you know what. He cannot create yards after contact. He doesn't look good. I mean, the Jets offensive line stinks too, but he doesn't look good.
I mean, the thing about Breece Hall, I think it's a little unfair to say he's stunk because he only had 6 carries last game and he averaged 9.1 yards per carry and ended up with 50 yards.
His numbers stink.
Yes, fantasy
Outside of
production
the
wise,
first game, yeah.
they were down 17-0 to the Chiefs after the first quarter. You don't expect that to happen this week.
Yep.
So they're going to be a more balanced attack. He's off the snap count. He's off the pitch count or whatever we want to call it. So I think this is going to be a really fruitful week for Breece Hall. And maybe it's one where if you are a Dalvin Cook owner and you're not starting him this week, it gives you some confidence depending on the matchup later on as a flex play. Like, hopefully.
Listen to this stat. The Broncos have allowed 4 running backs to score 20 or more points this year. 4 have scored over 20 against them, including Achane, who had 51. They stink against the run. We talked about Brian Robinson against the Bears on Thursday night. I like James Cook against the Jaguars. They've given up 14-plus points to a running backs in 2 straight games, including almost 20 to Bijan last week. David Montgomery is virtually a must-start. He's in my top 10 this week against the Panthers. Jahmyr Gibbs is a flex at best. I've been saying it for weeks. Montgomery has got a great matchup. Carolina's given up 7 touchdowns and the 4th most points to running backs. DeAndre Swift, even though he's still splitting the workload with Gainwell, he's just lighting it up. His fantasy points per touch average is really attractive. The Rams have given up 14-plus fantasy points to a runner in 2 of 3 of their last 3 games this year. So I like Swift as well at running back. Now let's move on to the wide receivers. We'll start with the stardoms. Michael Pittman Jr. is coming off a bad game. Put it behind you. The Titans are awful against perimeter receivers. He's averaging 14 points a game against them in his career. Start Michael Pittman. McLaurin, we talked about him as a start. Garrett Wilson, I was wrong about Garrett Wilson. I didn't love him last week. I had him as like a low 3 flex. And he had a great game. And it's not about him. It's about his quarterback. If his quarterback's going to play like he did last week, I got a lot more faith in Garrett Wilson. And even though, it's Patrick Surtain and, the Broncos top corner, I don't care. Their defense is terrible. They've given up 5 touchdowns and the 4th most points to perimeter receivers. So I'm in on JW. I like Zay Flowers against Pittsburgh and their awful corners. I like Adam Thielen, who I talked about in DFS against the Lions. You could start him. They've given up the 5th most points to slot men this year, so keep that in mind. The Siddums, and I've gotten Drake London every week. I've gotten him wrong but once. I don't know how you play him. Texans defense has not allowed a touchdown to a receiver who started his route on the perimeter. They're tough against those outside receivers, so beware Drake London. I want Taylor Heineke to be the quarterback of Atlanta. I've been saying that since probably the preseason.
I feel like Drake London is the bane of your existence right now. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, well, I've gotten Dak wrong a bunch of times too. So there's a couple of them. Courtland Sutton's been really good this year, and I know you probably got to play him. I mean, he's been 11 plus points in every game. He could have had he still had a massive game despite those 2 fumbles too. He could see some sauce this week. That's a problem. Jets, 4th fewest points to perimeter receivers. So something to keep in mind. Hollywood Brown against the Bengals. They haven't a lot of touchdown to a perimeter receiver. They're giving up over 15 points per game to that position. So not a great spot for Hollywood. Michael Thomas against the Patriots, even though their defense is a little bit banged up there. They lost the rookie. Judon's hurt. But they did bring in J.C. Jackson for what it's worth. And it's not
Bill Belichick. He'll figure it out.
So Michael Thomas is a fade for me. I also don't love Tank Dell this week. I know a lot of people out there that got to play him, but Atlanta's given up the 2nd fewest points to the perimeter. Now I would play Nico because I think Nico is more guaranteed to get the targets every week than Tank Dell is. But the matchup's not great for either one of those wide receivers.
I'm telling you, man, Falcons deep, they traded for Jeff Okudah. They have AJ Terrell, who is a great pick. They signed Jesse Bates, good defensive backfield, good defensive front.
Yeah. Their defense isn't bad. Their offense needs help. Their quarterback situation. Tight end, Zach Ertz, start him. Listen, I mean, he's the most targeted tight end in the league for crying out loud. Good or bad, in terms of his yards per catch, who cares? He's getting targeted and he's playing a lot of snaps. He's running a lot of routes. Bengals have allowed the 6th most points to tight ends. Sam Laporta, this is kind of low-hanging fruit, but tight end's an S show, and I'm running out of players to talk about. So Sam Laporte is in your lineup. I think you guys know that. I'm starting Dallas Goedert this week, and this would normally be low-hanging fruit. Dallas Goedert has been awful. His numbers have been terrible. I mean, he's not even in the top 15 at tight end. He's not in the top 20 right now. I mean, he's been so bad. He's got a 0, which he had in the first game of the season. He's averaging 5.5 points per game. This is Dallas Goedert we're talking about. But the Rams have given up 2 touchdowns and nearly 13 points per game to tight ends. So I will cross my fingers and hope that Goddard wakes up. In that same game, I'm going with Tyler Higbee. The Eagles have allowed 3 touchdowns and the third most points to tight ends. So Higbee's in a good spot. Our guy Jake Ferguson is also in a good spot. Tyler Conklin, I mentioned if you're looking to stream or maybe add somebody for DFS. The tight ends I'm sitting this week, Hunter Henry. I told you to sit him last week. He had 2 good games to start the year, and then the last couple of games have not been so great. And the Saints defense, 1 touchdown allowed, 4th fewest fantasy points allowed to tight ends. Tough one. I mentioned Cole Kmet. We'll see. He's going to be starting in some leagues coming off a big game. Commanders have been tough on tight ends. Kyle Pitts is going to live on my sit list until further notice. And guys, when there's 4 teams off and there's so few good tight ends, I don't care. I got to put him in there. Like literally people are like, what are you doing? Like this. Okay. Start him and sit him for tight ends. I've got to do 4 written up starts, another 3 more starts. So 7 starts, 7 sits. That's 14 tight ends. There's 4 teams off this week. I can't include Kelsey. I can't include Andrews. I can't include Hawkinson. I don't have much leeway. So
you can't really include Kittle either.
I mean, like, I'd rather tell you to sit Kyle Pitts than tell you to sit, Tanner Hudson or something like that. I mean, like there's just nothing out there.
I mean, like Freiermuth's out too. Freiermuth, right? He's out.
Freiermuth's hurt.
You can't tell me to start. Can't tell me to start George Kittle.
Tough,
I'm starting George Kittle anyway, right? Like
and he's been bad. No touchdowns, and he's had 1 good game. And I've got Chigakonkwo on the list. I know, and I hate doing it. I hate it. There's just, and I was talking about this on Fantasy Dirt, which you can of course hear over at SiriusXM. Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 Eastern. There's 3 or 4 tight ends that you could start every week and have relative confidence that they're going to score. I'll put Laporta in that list, but he's not on the same level as Kelsey, obviously. And Andrews and Hawkinson are a tier up from Laporta. After that, George Kittle's had 1 good game. Darren Waller's had 1 good game. Evan Ingram's been good. He doesn't put up like bananas numbers, but he's been solid so far this year. Dallas Goedert's had no good games. And then you get into the guys that like may or may not, like Jake Ferguson. He's been good in some games, not good in others. Higbee, same kind of thing. Ertz, he's been solid, but his ceiling isn't great. Dalton Kincaid, he's had a couple of good ones, a couple of stinkers. Henry, 2 good ones, 2 stinkers. Cole Kmet, coming off a big game. Before that, nothing. Schultz, coming off a good game. Before that, nothing. It's awful at tight end. It's awful. I rank 32 tight ends every week. At the end of my tight end rankings, I've got Noah Gray, Mo Alley Cox, Tanner Hudson, and CJ Flippin' Uzama. And Durham Smythe's in there too. And if Luke Musgrave doesn't play, I got Josiah DeGuara on there. Or how do you pronounce his name? DeGuara, whatever. I'm not starting him. Although watch him score a touchdown on Monday night. So just so you know, tight end's a total S show.
I liked your kind of mid-tier grouping though. I mean, I know you have Hunter Henry as a sit-em this week, but if he's getting 5.5 targets a game, like,
so he's like, yeah, exactly.
I don't mind you playing him, right?
I've got to play him in one of my leagues, and I don't love the matchup. The Saints defense. Listen, you go with what you got.
Kind of have to chase
snaps and
targets.
Running back too. Like it's the same thing at running back. Like we've been talking about it, and now you got, the Buccaneers are off, the Browns are off, the Seahawks are off. I got to look at my helmets. The Chargers are off. Yeah. I got my helmets behind me here. Look, my bye week teams are right there.
There you go. There you go.
So, and see, I got the throw. It's not a throwback, but the Lions one. I hate the logo. I love the colors of the helmet. Anyways, we can
was
do a
that
whole
the Bears?
About my helmets. What's
that? Oh, that was the Browns. That's the 32 on it. on the
Yeah.
side of
Oh,
it?
I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
That's the best. That's the Browns' best helmet. Jim Brown, rest in peace. All right. Anyways, folks, that's all for this week's edition of the Believe Fantasy Football Show. For your friendly neighborhood fantasy analyst Fabs and my guy Toss behind the virtual glass, good luck this week. Make sure you tune in next Tuesday. We will have your waiver wires. We'll recap everything that went on in week 5, and I'm sure it's going to be bananas as it always is. Toss, one last thing before we go. Give me a prediction on Cowboys Niners.
Ooh. I think I know Dak was a
Niners are
sit-em.
a 3.5-point favorite right now on DraftKings.
I know Dak was a sit-em, but I think this is the game where he shows some confidence for Cowboys fans. He has 270 plus passing yards and 2 touchdowns, but it's a close game. But I'm not going to pick the Cowboys to lose. I'm going to pick us to cover and to win. So forget the +3. Money line the boys. You can be anxious, and I'll leave that to you, Fabs. No, I'm excited to watch the game. I was walking around last Sunday at an LA flea market, and I found a jersey. You know, like people love to collect vintage jerseys and sell them for like 3 times what they're actually worth now.
Yeah.
And I see a Broncos 87, and I'm like, oh, that's Ed McCaffrey. There you go. Like, how is this in this random stall at a flea market in LA? And then Christian goes for 4 touchdowns. So I don't know if I gave some good juju to CMC there, but it's going to be a tough matchup for the boys. We just have to get after Brock and wreak some havoc. He hasn't faced a defense like us yet.
Micah's banged up a little bit, which stinks.
Yeah.
Debo's banged up for the Niners too. Here's my take on it. And I do not want to be disappointed. And I've been nothing but disappointed since 1995. So that's a long time. Were you even born at that point?
That may or may not have been the year I was born. It's the year I was born in May of 95.
Handsome young man. Yeah.
If we lose close, are you fine?
No. If the Cowboys lose this game, everything that every naysayer and critic says about them will be true. We beat up on 3 awful teams, and we lost to an awful team. The Jets are not a good team. The Giants are not a good team. The Patriots, I'm sorry, are not a good team. They're not. They haven't been since Brady left. So the naysayers will say the Cowboys have beaten 3 really bad teams and got beat and dominated by another one. If we lose this game, even if it's close,
even if it's a Jake Moody field goal to win the game as time expires.
We lost the game. Yeah. If the Cowboys want their respect, it's in front of them. Go get it. If they want their respect, they have to beat the Niners, no matter what. Because staying with the Niners means what? That you're a good team, just not good enough? That's not good enough for me. The Cowboys need to beat this team. And then, and only then, will I consider them potentially NFC championship contenders. If we go to San Francisco and get our asses kicked, we are every bit as overrated as every critic is going to say that we've been.
Yeah, I mean, look, real talk. We're not a good red zone team. We can't score touchdowns, and I don't know if we unlocked something with Hunter Lipke, our fullback last week. You know, we said he could play the Zeke role, maybe. I mean, that's a high ask of this guy. Ezekiel Elliott was a fantastic running back. Like,
our offensive line has been banged up. Our defense is banged up. Obviously, Diggs is gone for the year. Mike is hurting a little bit. Again, the Niners don't have Debo healthy. He's going to play, but he's not 100%. I don't care. There's no excuses. If the Cowboys don't go in there and win that game, I don't care if we win by a point. You got to win that game. You have to win that game because nobody's going to give you the respect that the Cowboys played tough. Oh, moral victory. No. This is the Dallas flipping Cowboys. We're not the Raiders. There's no moral victories in this.
Right. We don't have Zach Wilson as our QB. The
Cowboys, the Niners have knocked us out of the playoffs the last 2 years. Go out and exact a little bit of revenge. And that's the only way that I'm going to be happy if we win this game. If we're not, I am going to be pissed on Monday morning, all day Monday, probably all week. We're good enough to beat the Jets, the Giants, and the Packers and the Patriots. We can't beat the Cardinals, and we lost to the Niners. It's typical Cowboys. But I will keep my fingers crossed. I will root and root and root.
No, now you've convinced me that if we lose, it's going to be a terrible thing. I'm kind of with you. Like we have to. Win.
It's going to be a terrible thing. The
Yeah,
Niners
you're right.
are the cream of the crop in the NFC. They're the best team. Staying with the Niners does nothing for me. You've got to beat them. Staying with them does nothing for me. Got to beat them.
Yep.
It's like, the Bills hung in there with the Chiefs in the playoffs. No, the Bills are like, F you. We got to win that game. So that's my take on that. Anyways, I could go on for another 15 minutes and I don't want to. Well, I'm sure we'll be texting on Sunday night.
Yeah.
Everybody out there, have a great week 5. Good luck in your fantasy matchups. Make sure you listen to SiriusXM Fantasy Dirt Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 Eastern time. I'll be doing a show with Justin Fetcherman on Sunday morning on SiriusXM as well. That's at 7 a.m. Eastern. It's really early, but check it out. And of course, everything from Stardom and Cinema rankings and all the waiver wire stuff, all the great content over at Sports Illustrated. Make sure you check it out. For Toss, this is Fabs. We'll see you soon.